Hello friends, thanks for joining me today. This is going to be the month of March, my wrap up for the stuff I read in March. It is finally springtime, it is lovely, and it's springtime, but it's been like false spring, because where I'm at, it'll get really nice really fast for like a few days, and then the temperature and the weather will tank down to colder again, and it'll come back up, and it's just up and down. I think we're very nearly into real spring, which is lovely. Loving the sun, loving the warmth, loving being able to run outside and not having to go to the gym to run on the treadmill. So anyway, let's go ahead and get into the things that I read in March. So the first thing that I finished was the audiobook for Miss Percy's Definitive Guide to the Restoration of Dragons by Quenby Olson and narrated by Zara Ram. This is the third and final book in the Miss Percy series, which is a historical fantasy about a 30-something-year-old lady named Mildred who lives in England and inherits a dragon egg from her late uncle, and when it hatches, havoc ensues as she tries to raise this creature and deal with various ill-intentioned people. And this has been a very charming series, and I gave this final book 3.75 stars. The writing is stylized to sound, proper and old-timey, and sometimes it gets very verbose because of that. It's kind of easy to start zoning out to the narration a little bit. It just does kind of belabor the point, but this was still a fun book. There are more dragons than ever that are really cute, and the antagonist in this book is Mildred's niece, Belinda, who is just absolutely horrible, just the worst kind of manipulative and mean person. Mildred doesn't really orchestrate her success. It kind of just happens around her, and I do wish that she had a more active hand in it to show kind of her growth as a character, but this series had a very happy ending. The epilogue is lovely, and I enjoyed the series. Do recommend if you want, a low-stakes historical fantasy set in, Regency era England with dragons and an unassuming heroine who is kind of finding her confidence. The Invocations by Krystal Sutherland. I did listen to this on audiobook, which was narrated by Kit Griffiths, and this is a contemporary horror paranormal fantasy about three girls who are involved with witchcraft in some way. So there's Jude, who is her on the front, who is trying to undo a curse that went wrong and is basically rotting her soul and her body. Then there's Zara, who is trying to bring back her sister from the dead, and Emer, who is a curse writer and the only person who might be able to help Zara and Jude. And the three of them have to work together to hunt down someone who is killing witches. This was a 4.5 star. I really enjoyed it. There are a lot of descriptions of blood and the cutting of flesh and necrotic wounds on Jude specifically, so heads up if that bothers you, if you're squeamish about that. But in this book, witchcraft is accomplished by using demons, and I just really enjoyed how the demons were portrayed, and the characters were all great. I was really impressed by how interesting all three of the girls are right off the bat with their introductions. You know how sometimes you'll read a book with multiple POVs, and as you go, you're just more interested in some than others. Well, with this, I was just very hooked by all three of the girls immediately. Their introductions were fantastic, and through the book, I was invested in all three of their stories and their fates, and it was just really gripping. There's some necromancy, it's gay, it was just great. I think I might have been mildly annoyed with Jude at times if the narrator hadn't done such a good job of also making her just sound very charming. Maybe if I had just read it only via my eyes, I might have been a little more annoyed with her, but the audiobook narrator did a great job. Do recommend it. Not that I wouldn't recommend the physical book, I enjoyed it. This is the Barnes & Noble special edition, and I love the cover, but I don't know if you can tell, it has these beautiful gold metallic pink pink sprayed edges. I don't know if rose gold, maybe it's like rose gold kind of. It's really stunning physical book, and yeah, I really enjoyed this. So far, this is now my second book by Krystal Sutherland that I've rated highly, so definitely enjoy just her writing. Oh baby, you want in? Okay, I gotta film, okay? Yeah. Oh honey. I think my mic is positioned that she's gonna muffle it if I raise her up, but here's a Lilith. Pretty girl. Once again, when I come in here to film, I shut the doors so that I have a little bit of privacy, and she was just outside meowing, so I have decided to let her in. Hopefully she stays in here and doesn't meow to be let out, because I'm not gonna stop and start over and over again to let her in and out of the room. So you're gonna have to be good and just hang out in here while I film, okay? Okay. Thunderhead by Neal Shusterman. This is the second book in the Arc of a Scythe series, which is a dystopian sci-fi that takes place hundreds of years in our future, where people don't die of natural causes anymore, and instead people are killed by scythes. And the first book follows these scythe apprentices named Rowan and Citra while they train and basically have to compete for the title. And this book follows them again as they're on kind of their own separate paths, fighting corruption in the scythedom. And it also follows this benevolent AI called the Thunderhead that runs the world, but it isn't allowed to interfere at all with scythe business. So this book introduces another character that's sort of unofficially acting on behalf of the Thunderhead because it can't interfere directly. It's all very tricky and sneaky, and this was 5 stars. Like, it's been a long time since I've been so stressed reading the end of a book because it was just so intense and awesome. This one was more plot focused than the first book. You get even more information on this future society and how the Thunderhead works and thinks and acts. There's lots of political intrigue, and it ends on an epic cliffhanger. This series has been fantastic so far, and I just recently bought a copy of The Toll, so I'm excited to read that and finish out this series. All the Stars and Teeth by Adalyn Grace. The audiobook was narrated by Shayna Small. This is a YA fantasy about a princess named Amora whose bloodline uses a dangerous magic called soul magic, and a demonstration of her magic goes wrong, which forces her to go on the run and partner with a pirate named Bastion to try and prove her worth and save her kingdom from an imminent threat. And this was 3 out of 5 stars. Not bad, but just very standard YA fantasy fare that didn't do anything particularly unique or different, aside from maybe like the nautical elements. The very end had a lot of action and stuff that was, going on that was fun, but overall this was just very average. Not very memorable to me. I didn't love the narrator of the audiobook, specifically the way that she voiced the 2 main male characters. For Bastion, she was just trying to make his voice like deep and husky and kind of like sexy, and it just like wasn't working for me. And then the other guy named Ferric was nasally and like really annoying and reminded me of Butters from South Park. So that wasn't great. I'd say that, if you want a comfortable YA fantasy with nautical elements and this sounds interesting, then check it out, but it wasn't particularly notable to me. A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. This is a dark fantasy about a girl named Cordelia whose mother, named Evangeline, is an evil sorceress who manipulates and abuses Cordelia regularly, and one day Evangeline finds herself in sudden need of a new husband slash benefactor to support her. So the two of them travel to this wealthy squire's manor where she intends to basically seduce and marry him and then marry off her daughter. But Cordelia knows that her mother is bad, and she has to try and figure out how to warn and save the squire by working with his sister, Hester, who lives with him at the manor. And this is a retelling, maybe not retelling, it's like inspired by the Goose Girl fairy tale, which I have not actually read. I read like a Wikipedia summary of it, so I can't really compare the stories. It seems very loosely based on it though. But this was a 4-star. The characters are just the stars of this book. I think all of the characters are really charming and funny and just have great interactions with one another. And it's kind of like historical fantasy, and the prose and dialogue has that kind of that proper Regency era feel also, but it's very well done. Like in comparison to like the first book I talked about from the Miss Percy series, the Miss Percy's book really leans into that style, and it's almost too much at times, to where it's almost kind of silly. But in this book, it's much more refined and just, builds a vibe, and it's very fun. I laughed out loud, a couple times. The humor is just on point. And compared to the other books from Kingfisher that I've read, this was very light on the horror elements. There are little bits. I wouldn't really say this is horror, but it is dark. The pacing was a little bit slow, like in the first half for sure. But the characters are just so fun and entertaining that it helps, pass the time until things really kind of start to get going. I enjoyed this. I have yet to read a Kingfisher book that I didn't like. I still think that Nettle and Bone is my favorite so far, but this was also good. The Last by Hanna Jameson. This is a post-apocalyptic mystery that takes place at a hotel in Switzerland where the main character John is staying when a nuclear war breaks out across the world. And you're following him and the others at the hotel in the months following as they deal with the unknown and the reality just of their situation, having to band together and survive. And it takes place mostly at the hotel, and he also starts investigating a murder when he discovers the body of a girl inside one of the water tanks. And I gave this 3.5 stars. I did enjoy it. This was very character driven, so if you want a post-apocalyptic book that's less about like violence and people killing each other and, less of trekking across the country and things like that. If you're wanting something kind of more low-key and introspective with, a bit of tension and mystery, then this would be a good choice. John has a wife and 2 kids back in America, so he's kind of dealing with some emotions. He and his wife left things kind of badly right before he went on this business trip, so there's some guilt there. And I feel like the murder mystery part was almost unnecessary. I don't know. It drives part of the plot and the interactions, but just, I don't know, because this was so character driven, the mystery took a back seat a lot of the time, and I don't know, there wasn't like enough urgency to it to get me to be super invested in that part of the plot, but I did enjoy the book overall. The narrator did a great job with the many different accents that people had. Like there are people from all over the world staying at this hotel. So yeah, he did a good job and I enjoyed it. And wrapping up my reads for the month of March, I have The Near Witch by V.E. Schwab. This is about a girl named Lexi who lives in a small town called Near. And one day, a boy that no one has ever seen before, a stranger, shows up near her house, and the very next day a child disappears in the middle of the night and the stranger is blamed for it, and Lexi is trying to solve the mystery of where the town's children are being taken, what the deal is with this stranger who she doesn't think is the one responsible, and also trying to learn more about a witch that used to live in the town in the past and what happened to her. This also has dark fairy tale, folk tale vibes. There's kind of light magic involving nature and the wind. And this is actually V.E. Schwab's debut novel. It originally came out in 2011. And this is a newer edition, but V.E. Schwab's one of my favorite tried and true authors, and this was a 3.5 star. I think it was good, but it was a little circular. Lexi kind of does the same things over and over again each day. It got a little repetitive, which in turn was a little boring sometimes. But this edition also has a short story that tells the backstory of Cole, who is the stranger who comes to town, and I think that it definitely helped me sympathize with him a little more because he was a little frustrating in the main story. It suits his character. He's like very closed off for reasons, but it was, I don't know, he was still kind of frustrating. The actual near witch stuff is pretty creepy and cool. And it's a story with themes of otherness, about being different and not fitting in, and the things that come from prejudice and hatred. So it was good. Not my favorite or her best, but this was her first novel, and you can see some of the similarities in the writing when compared to her more recent books. She's always been a good writer, but she has definitely improved her character work over the years. And those are the things that I finished in March. Let me see, the things, so I'm in the middle, well, a little past the middle of reading Wind and Truth by Brandon Sanderson. This book is long AF. This book is like 1,300, like a little over 1,300 pages. I am over halfway through. It's just like taking me a long time, man. Like I had to stop to read my book club book in between, and I don't know why it's just taking me so long to finish this, but I'm gonna push through. So I'm getting there through Wind and Truth. On audiobook, I just started listening to Gods of Jade and Shadow by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So just started that like less than an hour into it, but has very much also kind of mythology, fairy tale kind of style writing. And then I am also reading for our book club book for this month. In the book club that I have locally, we're reading Chain Gang All-Stars by, I do not remember his name. I will put a picture of the book. I don't remember the author's name. But that is the book that we're reading for book club. I'm like 80% done. Definitely first half was kind of okay, but then it starts to get intense. At like about the 50% mark, there's just some POVs and stuff that's just like, wow. So those are the things that I'm reading right now. Let's see, it's April now. In May, I'm hoping to read some more books in the theme of Fae May. I still have a few books with Fae in them, and I'm hoping to get to those, including, I think last year I'd said Emily Wilds, and I didn't get to it. So hopefully I'll be able to read that this year. Continue books by Olivia Atwater. Half a Soul I read like a couple years ago or a few years ago, and I'm hoping to kind of continue that anthology series. So yeah, hope that you guys enjoyed. Read several books that are kind of older, and then maybe a couple that are more new. I'm really trying to go through my books and starting to get rid of things that I've had on my TBR for years and that I might kind of be growing out of a little bit. I hate acquiring books and then getting rid of them before I read them. Granted, the majority of my books I do get used from thrift stores and like Goodwill and things like that, so I usually don't pay full price for most of my books. But yeah, trying to kind of go through, I can feel my tastes are starting to change a little bit. I still enjoy the things that I used to enjoy, but I'm being a little bit more selective when it comes to like YA fantasy, as shown from the Adalyn Grace book that I read. It's something that interested me years ago, that had been on my TBR forever, and I finally read it, and I'm kind of like, okay, I'm starting to get a feel for not super interested in the kind of younger YA fantasy stuff. But anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope that you're having a good reading year so far, and I will see you guys in my next month's wrap up. Bye!